Check it out, guys. Snoo here. Welcome to another video. I'm coming out with a couple tech-related videos for the Twister build in short order, but we got to talk about the new ring in town, the Taming ring. It has been brought as a legacy PoE1 super strong Trinity-based elemental ailment ring, and it's now in Path of Exile 2. We knew it was coming. The developers teased it in the reveal. They suggested it was going to be very strong. As of yesterday, I was aware of the data mining on it and just how insane it would be. Absolutely revolutionizes the Twister build, solves one of the very biggest issues that it has. I'm talking elemental grounds, and goes way above and beyond in that respect. And so I'm going to be talking about this ring. I'm going to be sharing how to get it in real time. I'm actually going to acquire it in this video and bring you along for the ride. And then there's also another section towards the end if you're already aware of all this stuff, but you're following the build, you want to get some insights for what this is going to do to the later endgame versions of the build for sure, because it is a kind of high budget item. Trinity is looking real nice with this ring, as you can probably imagine, so I'm going to give it a little extra section of the video talking about that there. So with that out of the way, we're going to look at the Taming ring in PoE2 right now, and we're going to look at each individual line so you understand exactly how insane this ring is, especially for those of you who are new to Twister. This might be a little confusing when you read it for the first time. Anyway, PoE1 has the Taming ring, and a lot of the stats that are there are present here, especially the stats near the top of the line. It's a prismatic ring, all resistance, implicit. It also has a very high all resistant roll as an explicit roll. So that's a lot of resistances you get on top of everything else. Then it has 10 to 20% increased damage for each type of elemental ailment on the enemy. Well, we have a 20% increased damage for each type of elemental ailment on the enemy. It's one of the best passive notables. In fact, there are two of them if I'm not mistaken. And so I quite often take that on the passive tree. So we know how that works. That's very good as well. I mean, if you're shocking, igniting, chilling, and maybe freezing, that's up to 80%. Obviously, you could get electrocuted in there, but typically not. Where it gets interesting are the lines below that. Exclusive to PoE2's version of the Taming, it says wind skills. That refers to skills with the wind tag. Incidentally, last league, Twister was given the wind tag, but there was nothing special we could do with it at the time. I knew they would bring something out eventually, though. Wind skills, which can be boosted by elemental ground surfaces, can be boosted by multiple elemental ground surfaces. Now that's really interesting to me because back in 0.4, the Druid got a new Tornado wind skill, and it was able to suck up all three different elemental ailment grounds. So we're talking burning ground, shocked ground, and chilled ground, but Twister has never been able to do that. And honestly, in my opinion, it's way too overpowered to be able to do that. They would have to rebalance the stats on it, or perhaps we're going to wait on that for a league, because if we look one more line down, it says wind skills which can be boosted by elemental ground surfaces count as being boosted by all three at the same time with absolutely no requirement. It's just given to you. And so the way Twister works is you get a 50% gained as extra cold damage for being on chilled ground effect. Same thing, except for lightning and fire for shock and ignite respectively. So this is effectively a 150% gained as extra split between fire, cold, and lightning. Obviously that's going to be pretty favorable for Trinity, but it's the most favorable for just raw freaking damage, because that is a lot. And of course, the nice thing about it is it means it has solved the issue for you. So any ascendancy out there, which is all of them to a certain extent, which has to solve elemental grounds for Twister, has it done automatically for them. So now you know how insane it is. You probably want one too. How do you get it? Well, obviously you can do it the old-fashioned way and just purchase it off trade with the currency that you have farmed. I gotta say though, the price point's been pretty heavily in flux, and there is a premium fee, so to speak, that you have to pay to do it this way. Still, very straightforward, just get it done. Currently listed at 48, 49 divines. It was 39 divines like an hour ago, and then it was 64 divines about 2 hours before that. So I don't really know where this is going to land at. I think it's just going to go wildly up and down. Obviously some market manipulation being done here, but actually it's a little hard to manipulate in the market because it's not something that you can just spam create, which you're going to find out in a second. This ring, first of all, is created by crafting 3 of these barracks rings together. So there's barracks grip, which you can see here. Barracks pass, a little cheaper for some reason. And barracks respite. Typically, at least in PoE1, these rings were found just randomly. They're just global drops, and I assume that's the case again. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. But if you do the math on that, which I didn't, but I did before, if you do the math on those 3 rings by themselves, collectively they are a fair bit cheaper than the final product. I think it's mostly been around a 5 divine discount, and that's because you got to do a little bit of extra work to get it. So what do you have to do to get it, actually, in game? Well, first thing you got to do is find the secret map. As I mentioned in the intro, GGG said the Taming Ring exists and that it would be very hard to find. And so I figured it probably had something to do with acquiring the 3 barracks rings, because that's how it works in PoE1. You compile them together. And I also figured it probably wasn't as simple as just reforging it on the reforge bench. Of course, that option's not available. It's a little more complicated than that. Upon watching Travik's video and the player that he was talking to discussing how to get it, the discovery of that process, I learned that it is on a little known map called Asmirian Ranges. You can type this into the search bar, and I noticed initially, prior to opening up some of the atlas here, I didn't have a single version of this map anywhere. And so that's one reason why it's a premium cost to get the final product, because we have to find this map first, and then we have to go to it, and we're going to make the ring in that map. So come along for the ride. Let's do it together. So upon entering the Asmirian Ranges, all you got to do from the very beginning is just veer left, even though it looks like there's a wall right here. Apparently you just slide right on through into a little secret door, and voila, there's a contraption here that says or suggests I need to put 3 rings inside. They go right here. And it says exchange. And I guess this is the secret of the wisps. We're a very wisp-like class after all, so feels right on theme. And there it is, prismatic ring. It has some roll ranges. Let's see what I got. I got very low roll ranges, so I'm probably going to divine this. Or, you know, maybe I'll sell it for profit and find another map. Who knows? Anyway, guys, the Taming Ring. It is most definitely going to replace Call of the Brotherhood. I mean, I probably should have replaced it by now at some point anyway. But this is going to be a mainstay. And I would say that this is the first of the last items that I'm ever going to equip on this character. But of course, I'm not going to leave you hanging. We got to see what this looks like. Whirling Slash. Now, very, very high color palette, isn't it? Get a little barrage action and twist, and well, if it didn't break your vision before, now it definitely will. That looks pretty cool. Let's see what it looks like on an MTX while we're at it, since I happen to have that. If we go into skills, you can purchase this MTX if you want. There is a Druid Whirling Slash effect, and I can just do this. And so we can see, yeah, a little bit nicer, and then it makes it look like giant wisps, and really, they're just even more bright than they were already. Not bad. I might stick with that after a while, but I think I'm going to go back to nothing in there. Oh! It looks like I got an intelligence problem. I'm going to have to fix my attributes, eh? That's okay. So, now you know what the taming is. Now you've seen it in action. You've seen how to acquire it. What does it mean for the build? For the endgame version of the build? Obviously, it's just straight up good. And we don't need to worry about how to get elemental grounds. On Spirit Walker, we were using Vivid Stampede, as well as Charge Mark, Hardcasting Sniper's Mark. Or at least that's what I was doing in the latest edition of the build. I don't know if I'm still going to use Sniper's Mark. Probably will, because we need to get frenzy charges. But I gotta say, this sort of elevates the Deadeye's position a little bit, because that was a little bit more difficult to deal with than getting frenzy charges was getting the elemental ground, and that's totally out of the way there. It's good for everybody across the board, naturally. Now, the interesting thing is what it means for Trinity, because initially when I set up the mid-in-game variant of the build, the final version that is currently listed there, I had to do some pretty big workarounds, like manipulate the flat damage rolls on gear and get a specific type of Heart of the Well and that sort of thing. Some things have changed now. You can see inside Path of Building, we can now go ahead and actually check all three of these, because that is going to be true with this new ring. I had to manually input it here, but it's, as far as figuring out the numbers, it's in place. Let's look at the calculations, and you can see that we've got a very nice spread of damage. This is with buffs in place, such as Blazing Critical, certain buffs that would be very reliable. It does not count things like Headhunter, though, although Headhunter is going to be a little less wonky, because normally Headhunter shifts your elemental damage because it gave you Trail of Ice buffs and whatnot. So we can see that the minimum roll range and maximum roll ranges are all fairly close together, lightning lagging behind just a little bit. I've now decided to pull the buckler officially for this variant, and I think it'll make most people happy, for the Sacred Flame. This is the high-end elemental damage Shrine Scepter. It comes with some extra spirit, although I haven't worked out exactly if and what I want to do with that. If I did something with it, it would definitely involve an unset ring. So maybe elemental conflux, although that makes Trinity harder to deal with. Anyway, I really like the extra line of text here. Enemies in your presence resist elemental damage based on their lowest resistance. This would even go further to improving your damage and regulating Trinity. I think I will make a separate tech video on this, but this is just sort of the TLDR. We've shifted over to now putting flat lightning damage on the gloves and the weapon and the ring, and that is what brings lightning up. Sacred Flame is what's in charge of bringing fire damage up to par, and then of course cold is just a shoe-in with ice-tipped arrows and having a high DPS physical spear. And so that is what is enabling these to all three line up in a similar fashion, and I very much anticipate to have the absolute best, most regulated Trinity that we've seen on a Twister build to date. That concludes our little video on the Taming Ring, what it is, how to get it, why it's insane, and what it means for the future of the build. Of course, we have the build guide still here on Mobalytics. It has been updated with this final variant, as you can see, the Sacred Flame put in there. So all the modifiers for that version are highly specific, tailor-made to maximize the build damage, including Trinity. So be warned, if you are already passing on through the early endgame variant, going into the later stuff, those things are subject to change from time to time with new tech in play. Every single league, without exception, we have seen something brand new come into the game that supercharged the Twister build. The Lavianga's Flask, Mana Flask, improved our Whirling Slash damage, or not damage, but speed a lot in 0.4, for example. But there's always something, and this league, it's bigger and better than ever, and really I only have one complaint, and that is it's too easy. Personally, I'd rather see an item give a whole bunch of power that makes players work for it a little bit. Otherwise, it seems entirely imbalanced. And this is definitely imbalanced. So if you are thinking, it's just one of those things, maybe I'll play Twister next league, maybe not. This is not going to exist in its current form next league. I can promise you that. It's way too strong. So this is a sort of one-time only in terms of the exact power spike that you're going to get from this ring, or from Twister in general, the combination of all the things. Get on it while you can, I guess. Anyway, that concludes the first of 2 tech videos. Look forward to the next one. It's going to be about that Kalguran support gem with Ward. I bet a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, just teasing it here. If you guys have any remaining questions, let us know in the comments section down below. You could have been in on all of this in advance if you had been hanging around the live streams, hanging around the Discord. A lot of this information's already been floating around, but here it is officially out on YouTube. Hope it helps you guys. Sorry it's going to be an expensive upgrade, but it is absolutely worth it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Look forward to the next video. We'll see you there.